My father always said, business is family and family is business. At the time, I thought it was just a phrase. I didn't realize he meant it quite literally, especially when it came to my life. I was 24 when he sat me down at his study table, the room heavy with cigar smoke and contracts stacked in neat piles. He didn't ask if I was in love nor what I wanted. He told me I would marry Omar, the son of his closest associate. A union, he said, that would secure our future. Before I continue, if you've ever been pressured into silence for the sake of family reputation, you'll understand my story. Like this video, drop your name and state for a shout out in the next story, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Now, let's continue. I was his only daughter, and he believed this marriage would cement a mining concession that could stretch our wealth for generations. My voice was small that day, but I tried. I told him I wasn't ready, that I barely knew Omar. He pressed his palm against mine, the way fathers do when they want to comfort, but his words were steel. You'll learn to love him. This is bigger than you. The wedding was grand, the kind people whispered about for months. Gold everywhere, guests from embassies, champagne that never stopped flowing. I smiled in photos, shook hands, played my part. But inside, I felt hollow. Even in that moment, with Omar's hand gripping mine for the cameras, I felt like I was walking into a deal, not a marriage. What I didn't know then was that Omar had secrets of his own. He wasn't marrying me for love or even for partnership. He was marrying me to cover the life he truly lived, one that never included women like me. It would take years before I found the courage to face that truth. But in that moment, all I had was my father's voice in my ear and a sinking in my chest that whispered, "This is not the life you chose." The first nights told me everything. Omar never touched me. He never even tried. He slept on his side of the bed with his back to me, scrolling his phone until long past midnight. At first, I thought maybe he was shy, nervous, or simply needed time. But days became weeks, and weeks turned into months. I was a wife only on paper. He treated me with a polite distance, as though I were a guest he hadn't invited but couldn't turn away. He never raised his voice, never insulted me, but that almost hurt more. Indifference is its own kind of cruelty. The truth came to me slowly in fragments. A whispered phone call I overheard in Arabic. Glances exchanged at a dinner party with a man he introduced as a friend. The way his eyes softened only when he looked at men, never me. He wasn't mine because he was never meant to be. Omar was gay and marrying me was his cover. I don't hate him for who he was. I hate the lie. The deal. The way my life was traded like a bargaining chip between two powerful men. Outside, we played the perfect couple. Photos for society pages, smiles at galas, rehearsed hand-holding when cameras were near. Inside, I lived in silence. I carried the shame, the questions. Was I unworthy? Was I invisible? Nights alone in that cold bedroom, I wondered if my father had any idea of the cage he'd built for me. I tried to confide in him once. I hinted at Omar's distance, at the emptiness I felt. He brushed it aside. Marriage takes work, he said. Be patient. It will settle. But it never settled. It only deepened until the silence became unbearable. And yet, for years, I endured. For family. For reputation. For the pretense of perfection that suffocated me every day. On the outside, our life looked flawless. The kind of marriage people envied. The daughter of a wealthy man married to the polished son of his closest associate. We smiled for cameras, sat side by side at fundraisers, even staged the small gestures, his hand on mine, my laugh at his jokes. But the cracks were there, just beneath the polish. At home, we barely spoke. Meals were silent, the sound of cutlery louder than any conversation. Omar stayed out late, often claiming business dinners, though I knew better. When he came home, he smelled of cologne that wasn't his, carrying an ease he never showed me. I tried to play my part, but the loneliness pressed heavy. I woke most nights to the hollow side of the bed, staring at a ceiling that felt like it was closing in. Some mornings, I'd catch myself rehearsing smiles in the mirror before breakfast, just to make sure the mask didn't slip. Friends started to notice. A close one pulled me aside at a gala and whispered, "You don't look happy. Are you all right?" I lied, the way I always did. Of course. Marriage is just an adjustment. Inside, I was breaking. Every time my father looked at me with pride, boasting about how well the marriage was working, my stomach turned. I wanted to scream, to tell him his deal had cost me my peace, my dignity, my womanhood. But I stayed silent, trapped between the life he wanted for me and the truth eating me alive. The worst part wasn't Omar's distance. It was the pretending. The constant performance of a life that wasn't mine. Every smile, every photo, every polite nod felt like a betrayal to myself. And one night, staring into the mirror, I whispered it out loud for the first time, enough. It was a small word, but it was the beginning of the end of my silence. The night I broke my silence wasn't planned. It wasn't some grand announcement, it just spilled out of me. We were at a charity gala, seated at a round table under chandeliers, cameras flashing from every angle. Omar was laughing loudly, his hand resting lightly on mine for show. My father was across the table, smiling with the satisfaction of a man whose deal had paid off. I couldn't breathe. When the microphone passed for introductions, I stood. My voice shook at first, but once the words began, they carried a weight I couldn't stop. "I need to tell the truth," I said. The room quieted. "This marriage you all see, the one you call perfect, has been nothing but a cage. I was forced into it. I live in it alone. And I will not pretend anymore." Gasps scattered through the crowd. My father's face drained of color. Omar's hand snapped back from mine. For the first time in years, I felt honest air in my lungs. The fallout was immediate. Whispers turned to headlines the next day. The story spread faster than I could control. The daughter of a wealthy businessman, trapped in a sham marriage, speaking out against the life arranged for her. Some pitied me. Some judged me. But for once, I wasn't suffocating behind silence. My father didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. When he finally did, it wasn't anger I saw in him, it was shame. He looked smaller, older. His voice cracked when he said, "I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was building our future. I see now what I've taken from you." I didn't forgive him that night. Some wounds cut too deep to be sealed with words. But something shifted. The lie had cracked wide open, and there was no going back. For the first time in years, the mask was gone. And though the world was staring, I finally felt like I could breathe. After the scandal, life was quieter. No more staged photos, no more pretending. The headlines eventually faded, but the weight of what happened didn't. Not for me, and certainly not for my father. He carried the shame heavily. The man who once strode into every room with confidence now lowered his eyes when people whispered. At home, he spoke softer, as though afraid to push me the way he once did. One evening, I found him sitting in his study, the same room where he'd once told me I had to marry Omar. He held his head in his hands and said, "I failed you." It was the first time I had ever seen him cry. He spent the rest of his life trying to make it right. He funded my education when I decided to return to school. He supported the nonprofit I started for women trapped in forced marriages. He showed up, quietly and consistently, not as a businessman, but as a father who finally understood what mattered. I never moved back into his house, and I never fully forgot the years I lost. But slowly, I forgave him. Not because the pain vanished, but because he proved with every action that he carried the regret more than I did. Omar faded from my life. Last I heard, he had left the country, living freely in a way he never could under his father's shadow. I don't hate him anymore. We were both pawns in games our fathers set up. As for my father, he grew older, frilier, but never stopped reminding me, "You are more than the deal I tried to make of you." And in his last years, he found peace not in the concessions he won, but in the daughter he finally stood beside. If you stayed through to the end of the story, thank you. These stories aren't about wealth or titles. They're about choices, mistakes, and the strength it takes to rebuild. Like this, if it resonated, share it with someone who needs the reminder, and subscribe for more stories of truth and redemption.